The wind howled across the cold plains of New Terra, carrying dust from the endless desert that surrounded the human colony. The sun was setting behind the steel towers of the settlement, painting the sky in orange and violet light. Captain Elias Ward stood outside his small repair station, wiping grease from his hands as he watched the last cargo transport fly toward the horizon. He was a tall man, quiet and steady, with a face that showed years of work and war. His life had been filled with battles and rebuilding, but now he preferred silence. For months, the colony had lived in peace. Then, one morning, a message arrived from the Galactic Council. A special envoy would visit New Terra for diplomatic exchange. No one expected who it would be. The message ended with a single line: "Treat her as one of your own." The next day, the sky split open with light as a silver ship entered the atmosphere. It moved gracefully, almost like it was dancing through the air. The colony's workers stopped to watch as it landed on the open field outside the settlement. Elias walked toward the landing zone, his boots kicking up sand. When the ship's ramp opened, a small group of armored alien guards stepped out first, scanning the area. Behind them came a figure unlike any human. She was tall, slender, and glowing faintly with a blue shimmer. Her eyes were bright like crystal, her silver hair braided with shining threads. She wore a long robe decorated with unknown symbols. Even from a distance, everyone knew this was Princess Saralyn of Valora Prime. The crowd murmured in awe. The Velerans were one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, known for their beauty and technology. It was strange that they would send a princess here, to a dusty, lonely human colony. Elias stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Welcome to New Terra, Princess," he said in his calm voice. Saralyn's glowing eyes studied him. "You are the human called Elias Ward?" "Yes," he replied. "I've been assigned as your guide and host." Her expression remained cool. "You are not what I expected," Elias smiled faintly. "You'll find humans rarely are." Later that day, Elias showed her the colony. It was not grand, just metal homes, repair bays, and solar towers. But the humans were kind and greeted her warmly. Saralyn seemed surprised by their friendliness. In her world, commoners never spoke to royalty so easily. Yet here children waved at her and workers offered food. Elias explained, "Humans may be simple, but we try to make others feel welcome." That evening, as the twin moons rose, Saralyn followed Elias to the edge of the settlement. A small garden grew there, the only green place on New Terra. He had built it himself with care. In the center stood a single red flower, a rose. Saralyn bent closer. "What is this?" "It's called a rose," Elias said quietly. "A flower from old Earth, hard to grow here. Needs warmth and patience. It is beautiful," she whispered. Elias plucked one gently and offered it to her. "A gift, Princess." She hesitated, then took it. Her fingers brushed his, and for the first time she smiled slightly. "Why do you give this to me?" "In my world," he said softly, "a rose means kindness. And sometimes it means we wish someone to feel welcome." She looked at the flower again, unsure why her heart felt warm. "Thank you, Captain." That night, inside the quarters given to her, Saralyn sat by the window, holding the rose in her hand. She activated her hidden risk communicator and recorded her first report. Mission log, Day 1. Humanity is different from what our council described. Their colony is humble, but the people are open-hearted. My host, Elias Ward, is difficult to understand. He speaks little, yet his eyes show sincerity. I will continue my observation. She ended the message and placed the rose in a glass of water. For some reason, she couldn't stop staring at it. In the following days, she explored the colony more deeply. Elias worked long hours repairing old machinery, and she often followed him asking questions. "Why do humans live on such harsh worlds?" she asked one morning as he tightened bolts on a broken generator. Elias wiped sweat from his brow. "Because we go where no one else wants to go. It's how we survive." Saralyn tilted her head. "You do not fear death?" He smiled faintly. "We fear it, but we face it anyway. That's what makes us human." She thought about his words for a long time. Her people avoided danger and valued perfection, while humans seemed to find strength in struggle. Later, a small group of colonists invited her to share a meal. The food was simple: bread, roasted roots, and sweet tea. She tried it and smiled politely. Elias watched her reaction with amusement. "Not quite royal cuisine, huh?" It is strange, she said, then paused. But good. Everyone laughed softly, and she laughed too. For the first time in her life, she felt part of something ordinary and real. That night, as a soft storm passed over the colony, Saralyn couldn't sleep. She stepped outside and saw Elias sitting by the power tower looking at the sky. "You are awake too," she said, walking closer. "Old habit," he replied. "I used to keep watch during the war." She sat beside him. "You fought before?" He nodded slowly. "Yes, a long time ago. Lost many good people. That's why I came here, to find peace." Saralyn looked at him carefully. "And did you find it?" "Almost," he said, glancing at her. "Until a princess showed up with guards in bright armor." She laughed softly, the sound like music. "Then I am sorry for disturbing your peace." He shook his head. Maybe peace was too quiet anyway. They both looked up at the stars, silent for a long time. The next morning, Saralyn received a message from her father's court. The voice was cold and commanding. "Remember your mission. Study them. Find their weaknesses. The humans are emotional and unpredictable. Report your findings soon." Her chest tightened. She had not told Elias the real reason she came. Officially, she was here for diplomacy, but secretly, she was ordered to observe whether humans could ever be trusted. As she ended the call, she looked at the rose still resting by her bed. Its petals were opening wider each day. Somehow she couldn't bring herself to destroy it. When she went to see Elias later, she found him fixing a water pipe under the scorching sun. Without thinking, she knelt to help him. He looked surprised. "Princess, you don't need to do that." "I want to," she replied. "You always work so hard," he smiled. "That's what keeps this place alive." She watched his hands move, steady, careful, strong. He didn't speak much, but when he did, his words always carried meaning. After hours of work, they repaired the leak together. Elias stood wiping his hands. "You did well, Princess." She looked at the dusty ground, then said quietly, "Call me Saralyn." He paused, surprised, then nodded. "All right, Saralyn." For some reason, hearing her name from his voice made her heart beat faster. That evening, the colonists gathered near the garden for a small celebration. A supply ship had arrived safely, bringing fresh fruit and instruments. People sang and danced under the lights. Elias played an old song on a guitar. Saralyn stood aside, watching. Humans laughed so easily even after all their struggles. She wondered if her people had forgotten how to feel such joy. Elias saw her standing alone and walked over. "You can dance, you know." "No rules here?" She smiled shyly. "I do not know how." "Then I'll teach you," he said, holding out his hand. She hesitated only a moment before taking it. They moved slowly, her steps uncertain, his calm and guiding. Around them, the music grew softer and laughter filled the air. When the song ended, Saralyn looked up at him. "You said this flower rose means kindness. Does it also mean other things?" Elias smiled gently. "Sometimes. It can also mean something deeper. But I think you'll find that out yourself." She didn't fully understand his words, but her heart felt light. That night, as she lay in her room, the rose rested near her pillow. For the first time in years, she dreamed not of duty or orders, but of peace, warmth, and a quiet human smile, and far beyond the stars, in the halls of Valora Prime, someone watched her report with narrowed eyes, whispering, "So the princess begins to change." The stage was set. The real story of their worlds had only begun. The days on New Terra passed slowly, painted by golden sunrises and quiet nights. The colony had begun to feel alive again ever since Princess Saralyn of Valora Prime arrived. The people liked her gentle way of speaking and her curiosity about everything. Still, she carried a heavy secret. Each night she sent coded reports back to her homeworld. Short, careful messages about humanity's habits, technology, and behavior. But her heart hesitated every time she wrote them. When she first came, her orders had been clear. Study the humans. Find their weakness. Decide if they are a threat. But now, the more time she spent among them, the more confused she became. One morning, Saralyn joined Captain Elias Ward at his workshop. The place smelled of metal and oil, filled with machines that hummed and clicked. Elias worked with quiet focus, repairing a power regulator that had burned out the night before. "You always work so early," she said softly. Elias looked up, smiling faintly. "When you live out here, you learn to fix problems before they grow big." She tilted her head. "Do you never rest?" He chuckled. Sometimes. But I rest better when everything works. She watched him for a moment, his hands steady and patient. Humans were strange to her. They didn't have perfect machines like Velerans did, but they never gave up when things broke. They repaired, rebuilt, and kept moving forward. She finally asked, "Do you not miss your old life, Captain?" Elias paused for a long time. "Sometimes," he said slowly. "I used to be a soldier. I fought in the Outer Rim Wars. Lost good friends. Lost too much. After that, I wanted peace." Saralyn lowered her eyes. "I was trained for war too, but I never fought. My father said my place was in the royal halls, not on the battlefield." Elias gave a small nod. "Sometimes the hardest battles are the ones inside us." His words stayed with her. Later that day, Saralyn joined the colonists in repairing the irrigation lines. Everyone worked together, farmers, engineers, even children helping carry tools. She had never seen such unity before. In her world, class and power divided people. Here they worked side by side, laughing as they toiled under the sun. A little girl offered her a small metal charm in the shape of a star. "It's for you, Lady Saralyn. You helped fix the water." Saralyn smiled and took it. "Thank you, little one. I will keep it." When Elias saw the charm later, he grinned. "Looks like you've made a friend." "I think so," she said warmly. "Your people are kind." He leaned back against a wall, wiping his hands. "We try. We learned kindness keeps us alive." She looked at him curiously. "Do you believe that?" "Yes," he said simply. "After all the wars, after all the pain, the only thing that made us human again was caring for others." That night, Saralyn walked outside to look at the stars. The sky above New Terra was endless, thousands of lights shining like scattered diamonds. She had traveled through many systems, but somehow this view felt special. Elias walked up quietly, carrying 2 metal cups of warm tea. "Thought you might like something to watch the stars with," he said. She smiled and accepted it. "You always think of others," he shrugged. "Old habit. You stop thinking about people long enough and you end up alone." She sipped the tea and looked at him. "Were you always alone before I came?" Elias nodded slightly. "Yeah, but it wasn't so bad. Silence can be peaceful sometimes." She hesitated, then said softly, "Do you find peace now?" He looked at her carefully, his eyes kind but unreadable. "I think I'm starting to." Their eyes met, and for a moment the world felt still. The stars above seemed closer, as if listening. The next day, Saralyn went to her quarters early to send her report. She began recording in her calm, formal tone. "Mission log, day 12. Human behavior continues to surprise me. They are emotional but strong. They build bonds quickly, even with outsiders. Their leader, Captain Ward, displays traits of loyalty and courage uncommon in most known species. I find it difficult to call them weak." She stopped. Her voice trembled. She knew her father would not like that. The Valoran Empire saw emotion as a flaw. They believed feelings clouded judgment and made civilizations fall. She closed the device and didn't send the message. Later that week, Elias invited her to help him explore an old communication tower outside the colony. The structure had been built during the early settlement years but stopped working long ago. The desert around it stretched endlessly, silent except for the wind. As they entered the tower, dust and sunlight filled the air. Elias climbed up first, checking wires and circuits. "This place used to keep contact with nearby outposts," he explained. "If we fix it, we could reach ships faster." Saralyn watched his movements. "You do not wait for orders," she said. He laughed lightly. "If we waited for orders, nothing would get done." She smiled. "That is not how it works in my world." "I know," he said, turning to her. "But maybe it should." She helped him connect a few power lines, her slender fingers glowing faintly with blue light as she used her tech bracelet to boost the circuit. The lights flickered back to life and the tower began to hum. "Good teamwork," Elias said, looking impressed. For a moment she felt proud, not as a princess but as a person who did something real. As they returned to the rover, a faint signal appeared on her bracelet, an encrypted message from Valora Prime. She hid it quickly, but Elias noticed the look on her face. "Something wrong?" he asked. She forced a smile. "Just a personal message. Nothing important," but her heart pounded. The message said, "Status update demanded. Emperor grows impatient. Remember your duty. Do not forget who you serve." The words chilled her. That evening, Saralyn sat alone by the window. She finally opened the hidden message again. Her father's voice played through the device, deep and commanding. "My daughter, we trust you to uncover the truth about these humans. Are they weak? Are they dangerous? We must know before deciding their fate." His tone left no room for doubt. If she gave the wrong answer, Earth and its colonies could be destroyed. Sarah hands trembled. She looked at the rose Elias had given her. Its petals had begun to wilt slightly, but its beauty remained. She touched it gently and whispered, "How can something so fragile survive in such a hard world?" Then she remembered Elias's words, "Because we go where no one else wants to go." A tear slid down her cheek. She wiped it quickly, ashamed of her own weakness, but also realizing something new. Perhaps emotion wasn't weakness at all. The next morning, a sandstorm hit the colony. Power lines snapped and water pumps failed. Everyone rushed to repair the damage. Elias led the workers, shouting orders over the roaring wind. Sarah didn't hesitate. She ran into the storm with him, using her bracelet to stabilize the systems. Her glowing energy shield blocked the flying debris as she worked beside the humans. When it was finally over, they had saved the colony's crops and power grid. The people cheered. Elias looked at her, dust covering his face, and said, "Didn't know princesses could handle storms." She laughed softly, her voice tired but warm. "Neither did I." That night, as everyone rested, Sarah and Elias stood outside the workshop. The air was cool and calm again. "You risked yourself out there," Elias said. "So did you," she replied. "You could have ordered others, but you led them yourself." He smiled slightly. "Leadership isn't about giving orders. It's about standing with your people." She nodded, looking up at the stars. "Your kind is stronger than I was taught." He glanced at her. "And your kind is kinder than I expected." They shared a quiet laugh. In that silence, something unseen began to grow between them. Something fragile, like the rose in the garden, yet stronger than either could explain. Later that night, Sarah finally sent a message to her father. But this time she didn't lie, nor did she obey. "Report, humanity is not weak. Their strength lies not in their weapons, but in their hearts. They fight for each other, for peace and for hope. If we destroy them, we destroy what makes life worth living." She sent it without hesitation. Then she looked at the rose again, glowing softly in the moonlight. For the first time, she smiled not as a princess or a spy, but as a soul who had found something precious among the stars. And somewhere far away, on Valora Prime, the Emperor read her report with narrowed eyes and said coldly, "So, she has begun to change." The storm was over, but another, much greater one was coming. The sun rose quietly over New Terra, spreading soft golden light across the colony. The air smelled fresh after the sandstorm, and the people were already at work repairing what was broken. Captain Elias Ward stood near the water tanks, checking the systems that Sarah had helped fix. He smiled proudly as he watched the pipes flow smoothly again. "You saved us," he said softly. Across the field, Princess Sarah walked with a datapad, noting the colony's progress. The humans smiled at her wherever she went, waving as if she were one of their own. Each wave warmed her heart a little more. She had come as a spy, but now she felt like she belonged. But far away, in the cold halls of Valora Prime, her secret report had been intercepted. The Galactic Council had many eyes, and not all were friendly toward humans. When Sarah's latest message reached her homeworld, it was copied and decoded by Lord Vaynar, one of the Emperor's senior advisors. He read her words in disbelief. "Humanity is not weak. Their strength lies in their hearts." Vaynar frowned deeply. "The princess has lost her way," he said to his aides. "She has fallen under human influence." He sent the report directly to the Emperor, twisting the truth. "My lord, your daughter has been compromised. She now stands with the humans against our interests." The Emperor's eyes glowed cold blue as he read. "Then she has betrayed us. Shall I send retrieval ships?" Vaynar asked carefully. The Emperor shook his head slowly. "No, send a small strike team. Make it look like a human accident. The princess must not return to Valora alive." Back on New Terra, Sarah and Elias had no idea what was coming. That morning, Sarah joined Elias for breakfast in the small colony kitchen. The air smelled of roasted beans and fresh bread. She had grown used to the simple food and even started helping prepare it. Elias handed her a plate. "You're getting good at this," he said, smiling. I am learning your ways, she replied with a proud look. Your people cook with care. It feels peaceful. He nodded. Peace can be found in small things. They sat together at the table by the window. Outside, the desert wind carried the scent of the garden Elias had planted. The red rose she had kept from him was still alive, now resting in a small glass pot by her bed. Elias, she said softly, I sent a message to my home last night. I told them the truth about you and your people. He looked at her curiously. What truth? That you are strong, not weak. That your kindness is power. Elias's expression softened. That's kind of you, princess. She shook her head. Please, call me Saralyn, he smiled. All right, Saralyn. Her heart fluttered when he said her name. She didn't understand it, but she didn't want it to stop. Later that day, Elias and Saralyn went outside the colony to inspect the comms tower again. The sun burned high and the air shimmered with heat. Birds circled lazily above the dunes. As they reached the tower, Elias noticed something strange. His scanner picked up unidentified frequencies nearby, small faint signals coming from the east. That's odd, he muttered. Could be leftover debris from the storm. Saralyn's bracelet blinked blue. No, these readings are artificial. They are not from this planet. Elias's face grew serious. You think someone's watching us? Before she could answer, the sand behind them exploded. A blinding flash tore through the air as a drone dropped from the clouds, its metal wings folding open like a predator's. Get down, Elias shouted, pulling Saralyn to cover as the drone fired plasma bolts across the sand. He grabbed his rifle from the rover and aimed carefully, returning fire. The drone's armor glowed, deflecting most of the hits. Saralyn raised her bracelet, sending out a wave of blue energy that disrupted the drone's sensors. Keep shooting, she yelled. Elias hit the weak point near its core. The drone crashed into the sand, burning. Smoke rose into the bright sky. Elias looked at her. That wasn't a storm relic. She shook her head, fear growing in her eyes. No, that was Valoran Tick. Elias stared at her in shock. Your people sent that? She hesitated, her voice trembling. I don't know. But if they did, it means they want me dead. Back at the colony, the people gathered as smoke still rose from the dunes. Elias quickly ordered everyone to go on alert. Seal the gates. Bring in the workers. Get the shields up. Saralyn followed him to the control room. You cannot fight Valoran drones with this colony's defenses, she warned. They are too advanced. Elias's eyes were calm but firm. We've fought worse. She stared at him, frustration and admiration mixing in her chest. Why do you always face danger without fear? He looked at her quietly. Because fear doesn't protect people. Action does. For the first time, she understood what made humans different. They didn't hide from fear. They faced it. As night fell, the colony's lights flickered under low power. The colonists waited anxiously while Elias and Saralyn worked in the control room. We can't stay like this, Elias said. If they're sending more, we need to be ready. Saralyn touched her bracelet, scanning the stars. 3 more ships approaching orbit, she said softly. Small crafts, Valoran strike team. Elias clenched his fists. So they are coming for you? Yes, she whispered. And they won't stop until I'm gone. He turned toward her. Then we'll protect you. You would risk your life for me? She asked in disbelief. He nodded simply. You saved my colony. Now it's our turn. Her eyes shimmered as she looked at him. I never understood humans before now. I think I do. Hours later, the first of the strike ships entered the atmosphere. They moved fast, silent like shadows. The colony shields lit up as they began their descent. Explosions echoed through the night sky. Elias shouted orders. Positions. Keep the power lines up. Saralyn stood beside him at the command post, her fingers glowing as she boosted the energy shields. The blue light of her power mixed with the human lights, forming a strange but beautiful blend. They are here, shouted a guard. Elias ran outside with his rifle. He fired at the landing pods as they hit the sand. Valoran soldiers stepped out, tall and silver-skinned, their eyes glowing blue. By order of the Emperor, one of them called. The princess is to be taken, or eliminated. Saralyn stepped forward, anger burning in her eyes. You would harm your own princess? You have betrayed your world, the soldier said coldly. Elias raised his weapon. You'll have to go through me first. The soldiers hesitated, surprised by his courage. But then they attacked. Blinding lights filled the night as humans and Valorans clashed. Saralyn used her power to deflect blasts while Elias fought with fierce determination. Despite being outnumbered, the colonists fought bravely. The Valorans had better weapons, but humans had heart, and Saralyn's help turned the tide. After an intense battle, the remaining attackers retreated into their ship and escaped into the sky. The colony was damaged but still standing. Elias dropped his weapon, breathing heavily. Saralyn rushed to him. "You're hurt." "It's just a scratch," he said with a faint smile. "Are you all right?" She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. "You protected me, when it should have been me protecting you." He shook his head. "We protect each other here. That's what friends do." She touched his arm gently. "You are more than a friend, Elias Ward. You are the reason I believe again." Later, as the fires were put out and the colony calmed, Saralyn stood by the window in the control tower. The stars above looked colder now. Elias joined her quietly. "You can't go back to your people now, can you?" She shook her head slowly. "No, if I return, they will destroy me, or worse, use me." "Then stay," he said simply. "You're safe here." She turned to him, her voice soft. "Why would you risk everything for someone like me?" He smiled gently. "Because it's what humans do. We stand for what's right, even when it's hard." She looked at him for a long time, then whispered, "Then maybe I was sent here for a reason." Elias glanced at her, puzzled. "What reason?" She smiled faintly and looked at the sky. "To learn what real strength means." That night, as the stars shimmered above the quiet colony, Saralyn wrote one last message in her hidden communicator. "To anyone listening, the humans fought for me tonight. They faced death without fear. If this is weakness, then I wish all species were weak. I no longer serve Valora. I serve truth." She closed the device and placed the rose beside it. Far away in the dark halls of Valora Prime, the Emperor stared at the intercepted message and whispered coldly, "So, humanity has stolen her heart. Then we shall take it from them." The storm was not over. It had only just begun. The morning on New Terra was quiet, almost too quiet. After the last attack, the colony had repaired most of the damage, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time before the Valoran Empire returned. The twin suns rose, casting long shadows across the desert. Princess Saralyn stood in the garden near the red rose Elias had given her. The petals glowed faintly in the morning light. She touched it gently, remembering the first day he had given it to her. A small smile crossed her face, but her heart was heavy. "Saralyn," Elias called softly from the workshop. "We need to talk." She walked toward him. He was repairing a shield generator, his hand steady despite the worry on his face. "What is it?" she asked. "Valoran warships are in orbit," he said quietly. "They're demanding you return or they'll destroy the colony." Her eyes widened. "They would do that?" "Kill everyone here, for me." "Yes," he said simply. "But we won't let them. Not if I can stop them." Her chest tightened. "Elias, you risked your life for me before. Why would you do it again?" He looked at her calmly. "Because you trusted us, and because humanity doesn't leave people behind." Saralyn stared at him, feeling warmth in her chest. She had been trained to be careful, to hide her feelings, but now she realized something important. Elias had not only saved her body, he had saved her heart. By midday, the Valoran fleet appeared in orbit. Sleek ships of silver and blue shimmered against the black sky. Sensors in the colony went wild as the enemy vessels began scanning for weak points. The Emperor's voice came through the comms, cold and sharp. "Princess Saralyn, return to Valora immediately. Your human hosts are not to be trusted. Failure to comply will result in annihilation of this colony." Saralyn stepped forward, raising her voice so all could hear. "I will not go. They have done nothing but show kindness and courage. If you attack them, you destroy more than just a colony. You destroy honor." The comms went silent. Elias placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing, but we need a plan." She nodded. "I will stand with you." The colonists prepared for battle. Despite their small numbers, they were determined. Old human ships and repair drones were brought into the fight. They fortified the towers and lined the perimeter with defensive shields. Elias worked with precision, his experience from the wars guiding him. "Focus on the shields first. If we hold them, we survive." Saralyn activated her energy field, the blue light surrounding her hands like a protective glow. I will help keep the defenses stable, she said, her voice steady. No one will be hurt if I can control the fields. A young colonist looked at her nervously. Princess, are you sure? She smiled faintly. I am sure. I stand with them now. As the first wave of Valoran ships descended, the sky lit up with energy blasts and the roar of engines. The colony's shields flared, absorbing the first attacks. Elias fired at the approaching pods while Saralyn strengthened the shields with her power. The Valoran strike team landed near the garden. Soldiers moved forward, their weapons ready. By order of the Emperor, the princess will return, one shouted. Saralyn stepped forward, her energy flaring. I choose my own path. The soldiers hesitated. Elias aimed carefully, deflecting their fire and protecting the colonists. The humans fought with precision and courage, showing the strength Valora had doubted existed. Saralyn moved among the soldiers, redirecting energy blasts to protect her friends. Together with Elias, they formed a force stronger than any Valoran expected. During the battle, one of the Valoran leaders attempted to strike Saralyn directly. Elias saw the movement and pushed her out of the way, taking a blast meant for her. He fell to the ground, wounded, dust and sand covering him. Saralyn ran to him, her hands glowing as she healed the worst of his injuries. Tears filled her eyes. Elias, you can't. Not like this! He smiled faintly, his face bloody but calm. I'm fine. As long as you're safe. Her heart pounded. She realized then that her loyalty was no longer to Valora or duty. It was to the humans who had welcomed her, who had protected her, and who had shown her the meaning of trust and courage. After hours of fighting, the Valoran strike team retreated to their ships. The colony was damaged but still standing. Elias leaned against a wall, exhausted. Saralyn knelt beside him, holding his hand gently. You risked everything, she said softly. For me, for all of them. He shook his head. Not for you alone. For everyone who lives here. Humans don't leave others behind. She looked at him, tears shining in her eyes. You are more than I could have imagined. He reached out, brushing her hair from her face. And you are braver than you know. The next morning, Valoran Command contacted the colony again. Their tone was sharp, but this time it was different. Princess Saralyn, your actions have been noted. You are no longer considered compliant. The colony is under review. Return immediately, Saralyn looked at Elias. I cannot return. Not now, they would never forgive what I have done. Elias nodded. Then you won't go. We will protect you, and we will protect the colony. She smiled, feeling a strength she had never known. For the first time, she understood that courage did not come from power or orders. It came from the heart. The colony slowly rebuilt from the damage, but the battle had changed everything. Saralyn worked alongside the humans, helping repair and strengthen defenses. Children ran past her, calling her a hero. Colonists treated her as one of their own, not as royalty. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Saralyn and Elias stood near the rose garden. The petals glowed softly in the fading light. You saved us all, she said quietly. Even when I was afraid, he smiled gently. You were brave too. You stood with us. That's what made the difference. She looked at him, heart swelling. You are unlike anyone I have ever met. And you, he said softly, taking the rose from her hand, are unlike anyone I expected. They both laughed quietly, the sound like music in the desert air. Weeks passed. The Valoran Empire did not attack again, but their presence in orbit reminded everyone that the danger was not gone. Saralyn had fully embraced life among the humans. She no longer hid behind royal protocol. She walked among the colonists, laughed with children, and even helped Elias repair machines. One night, she stood outside looking at the stars. Elias came up beside her, holding 2 cups of tea. You are quiet tonight, he said. I am thinking, she replied. Thinking about what is important. What matters most, he nodded. And what is that? Courage, loyalty, compassion, humanity. She smiled at him. And perhaps love. Elias's eyes softened. Then perhaps some things are worth standing up for, no matter the risk. She turned to him. You taught me that. He offered her the cup of tea. Then stay with me, Saralyn, stay here. Build a life with us. Her hands trembled as she took the cup. I think I want that. More than anything. The rose in the garden bloomed fully that night, red and vibrant against the desert soil. It was a symbol of courage, of hope, and of 2 worlds finding common ground. Saralyn looked at Elias and whispered, You were sent to me. Maybe not by chance, but by purpose. Elias smiled, brushing the dust from her shoulders. And I was sent to you too. They stood quietly, hands brushing, hearts beating with unspoken words. Somewhere far away, the Emperor of Valora watched the stars, unaware that his daughter's heart had already chosen. For now, the colony was safe. For now, two worlds had begun to understand each other. And for the first time, Saralyn felt the warmth of belonging and the promise of a future that was not dictated by duty, but by choice. The night sky above New Terra sparkled, full of possibility. The desert air of New Terra was calm that morning. The twin suns rose slowly, painting the sky in gold and violet. After the last Velaran attack, the colony had begun to heal. Buildings were repaired, crops replanted, and the people were more united than ever. Princess Saralyn stood near the garden, looking at the red rose that had survived all the storms. Its petals shone with life, as if reminding her of everything she had learned here: courage, loyalty, hope, and perhaps something even stronger: love. Morning. Saralyn, Elias called from the workshop, his voice calm but full of warmth. She turned to see him smiling, his hands already covered in grease from repairing another generator. Morning, Elias. You're up early, he said. Or did you sleep at all? I slept, she said softly, but not peacefully. My mind keeps thinking about everything that happened. He stepped closer. You've done more than anyone could have imagined. Not just for the colony, but for yourself. Her gaze fell on the rose. This place, these people, I've never felt like this before. Elias studied her, his eyes steady. Then perhaps you belong here, not just as a visitor, but as one of us. Her heart fluttered. She did not understand how simple words could carry so much meaning. That day, the colony prepared for a ceremony. It was not a royal celebration, but a human tradition of gratitude, a feast to honor those who had protected the settlement. Saralyn had insisted on helping. She carried trays of roasted roots and fresh bread, laughing as children ran past her. Elias watched from the side, smiling. She had changed. No longer a cautious, unsure princess, but a confident young woman who had fought alongside humans, learned their ways, and shared their burdens. A young colonist tugged at her robe. Princess, will you join the dance? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes, Elias extended his hand. Then dance with me. The music began, simple and joyful, and together they moved in rhythm. The laughter of the children and the warmth of the people surrounded them. For the first time, Saralyn felt completely at home. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the desert, Saralyn and Elias walked to the garden. The rose glowed softly in the evening light. You saved us, Saralyn said quietly. All of us. And you saved me too, Elias replied. You reminded us that courage and heart matter more than strength or numbers. Her eyes shimmered. I was sent here to observe, to follow orders. But I've learned that life is more than duty. It is choice, he nodded. Sometimes the hardest choice is the one that makes your heart free. She took a deep breath. Then I choose to stay. With you, with them, with this world. Elias reached for her hand, holding it gently. Then just be mine, he whispered. Saralyn felt her chest tighten. She looked at him, the warmth in her eyes matching the glow of the rose. I will, she said softly. The next morning, the Velaran fleet returned to orbit. Their ships were fewer, smaller, but still a reminder of the Emperor's displeasure. A comms message came through, cold and formal. Princess Saralyn, you have disobeyed the Empire. You will return immediately, or the colony will face consequences. Saralyn took a deep breath and walked to the control room with Elias. We need to respond, she said. Elias nodded. Then let's make it clear. This colony is protected and I will stand with them. She spoke into the communicator, her voice calm but firm. To the Velaran Empire, I am Princess Saralyn and I have chosen to stay with humanity. They have shown me courage, loyalty, and kindness. If you attack them, you attack me, and I will not allow it. There was silence on the other side. Then the ship slowly began to retreat. Saralyn turned to Elias, a smile breaking across her face. It worked. They will not return. Not for now, Elias smiled back. Then we have a chance to build a future together. Weeks passed. The colony flourished. Children played freely in the desert dust, machines hummed with life, and the people smiled again. Saralyn had fully embraced human life. She learned to repair machines, tend the crops, and even tell stories at night for the children. The rose became a symbol of hope. Saralyn and Elias often sat beside it, talking quietly about dreams, plans, and the future. "You know," Elias said one evening, "this rose is much like this colony, fragile but strong, nurtured by care and courage." Saralyn nodded, touching the petals. "And just like us, it survived storms because it was protected by those who cared." He took her hand in his, holding it tightly. "Then let's protect each other." "Always," she smiled, her eyes shining. "Yes, always." One day, Saralyn decided to write a new report, not for Valora, but for herself. She wrote about everything she had learned, the strength of humans, their courage, their kindness, and their ability to choose what is right, even when it is difficult. "I came to study humanity. I thought I would find weakness. Instead, I found strength of heart. I have chosen my path, and it is here, with them, with Elias, with this world. I will no longer serve an empire that values orders over life. I serve truth. I serve hope. I serve love." She sealed the report in a small capsule and placed it in the garden beside the rose. It was a reminder of the past, but also a promise for the future. That evening, under the twin moons, Saralyn and Elias stood together in the desert. The wind was gentle, carrying the scent of sand and flowers. "You are safe now," Elias said, brushing dust from her shoulder. "For the first time," she replied, "and it feels like home." He reached for the rose, plucking it gently. "Then let this be a symbol," he said, "not just of survival, but of new beginnings." Saralyn smiled and took it from him, holding it close. A beginning. Between worlds. They stood together, hands intertwined, hearts united. The galaxy was vast and full of danger, but for now they had each other, and the colony was safe. Somewhere far away, the Emperor of Valora Prime frowned, but even he could not ignore the truth. The princess had chosen her own path, and humanity had shown a strength that could not be denied. In the following months, Saralyn and Elias worked together to strengthen the colony further. Trade ships began visiting again, children grew stronger, and humans and aliens alike learned to trust one another. The rose continued to bloom year after year in the small garden. It became a symbol, not just of a princess and a human, but of hope, courage, and the power of choice. One evening, as the sun set, Saralyn and Elias sat beside it. She rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the warmth and peace she had never known before. "You saved me," she whispered. "And you saved me too," he replied softly. They looked at the stars above, dreaming of a future together, a future built not by duty, orders, or fear, but by love, trust, and the courage to stand for what is right. The galaxy was wide, full of unknown worlds and dangers, but for Saralyn and Elias, there was only one certainty. Together they could face anything. And so, under the glow of the twin moons and beside the red rose that had survived storms and battles, two worlds found common ground, two hearts found each other, and a new story began, one of hope, courage, and a love that could bridge galaxies.